Hey guys, Josh Weidman here. I'm in the process of writing a new free report. It's called the 9 Rules for Building a Rental Empire in Any Market. Well, this morning I was sitting down, I was doing some writing, kind of thinking about some important parts of a successful rental empire. And one thing that came up is a conversation that I've had with a lot of investors, both new and experienced, kind of about the differences in planning for renovations and how do you budget for the numbers. And one of the biggest mistakes that I see from a lot of investors is that they try to skimp on the wrong stuff. Now, especially with new investors, what I find a lot of is that they look at, especially a rental property, they look at a rental and they say, you know what, this needs a little bit of carpet and paint, and we rent it out to a new tenant. And so today, what I'd like to do is kind of contrast that with some of the more experienced investors and show you what they've been doing and what we do at Turnkey Philly to make sure that that paint and carpet investment doesn't end up being a major liability on your bottom line. Okay? So here's what I see. Most of the time when somebody's looking at a rental property and they're looking at something that's turnkey or rent ready, what that really means is that, this property has been, some paint's been thrown on the walls, carpet's been rolled out, there's been a little bit of cosmetic repair, but the really expensive stuff, the stuff that's going to end up costing you money and have a major negative impact on your bottom line and your cash flow, has been ignored. What am I talking about? I'm talking about things like the roof, I'm talking about the windows, I'm talking about the heating system in the property, the drain lines, electrical upgrades. And these are things that they are not sexy at all. I mean, we can all agree that there's nothing sexy about a plumbing line, right? However, one thing that I've seen with tenants, with our property management company, one common factor that we've seen with tenants is that they, just like homeowners, would love to just live in a nice place and not have to worry about it, right? They want to come home and take care of their family, make dinner, watch TV. They don't want to be woken up in the middle of the night by a running toilet or a leaking ceiling, or when they go and turn the heat on, when it starts getting cold outside, they don't want that thing to conk out and they got to pick up the phone and call the management company or their landlord every time they turn around. So by doing the right repairs up front, by making sure that these large dollar items are addressed during the purchase of the property, you're going to be able to attract tenants that are going to stay for a very long time. In addition, if you're budgeting for them up front, there's no additional cost. All right, so let's take a look at two different scenarios. This is kind of a comparison of two properties. And essentially they're going to be the same properties, but on the first one, we've got the paint and carpet repair method, right? So here's what we have. I'm making a couple assumptions here, so excuse me, but here's what we have. We've got a purchase price on this property of $45,000. We're going to do $15,000 in renovation. And with that renovation, we're just going to take care of the kitchen and the bathroom and the place, put in some carpets, paint the place, make it look good, stuff like that. All right? So we got a total acquisition cost, including renovations, of $60,000. Now, one of the assumptions that I'm making is that with both of these rental properties, the investor is going to be refinancing 75% of the acquisition and construction costs out of the property. Okay? So they'll have 25% of the acquisition and construction invested. And in this case, we're talking about 15 grand. All right? So property one, total acquisition cost $60,000. You've got an annual income of $10,200. That's $850 a month rent. All right? So it's pretty typical bread and butter property in Philadelphia, in our market. That's a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom row home in a pretty consistent rental neighborhood. That's a decent neighborhood. Okay, so we got $850 a month. Expenses, about $3,500 a year, okay? And that gives us an adjusted income of $6624. Then what we're going to do is we're going to deduct the principal and interest, because remember, we refinance this out. There's a mortgage on the property. We've already calculated our taxes and insurance and these expenses right here. So this is just principal and interest, and that comes to just under $3,000. It's $2,898 for this principal and interest, and again, that's going to be a $45,000 mortgage. And I'm making the assumption that with today's rates, they're really fantastic. We're going to get about a 5% interest rate here. All right. Here's what we're left with. We're left with a gross income of $3,726. Okay. Roughly $300 a month, give or take. Not too bad. Not too bad on a $15,000 investment. to make just under $4,000 a month. I mean, that's about a 20% return. Not too bad, right? Not too bad at all. Okay, so now let's take the next comparison. Now remember, on this first property, we just did cosmetics. The place looks great, but there's no roof replacement. There's no heating system replacement. We didn't replace any of the drain lines or sewer lines in the property. We did not touch any of the windows or any of the electrical, none of that stuff. We're just talking cosmetics, okay? Now here's the comparison, right? Now we go in here and we look at property number 2. Property number 2 is a little bit different. It's the same subject property, but we went in as savvy investors. We went in as educated investors and said, you know what? We're going to go in here and we're going to buy this property at the right number. And in this case, we're paying a little bit more for an all-in number. Here's what we have. We have a principal or a purchase price of $40,000. So we were able to get that price a little bit lower at $40,000 instead of $45,000, knowing going in we're going to have to do some significant repairs to the to the mechanics of the building. Next, we're going to do a $30,000 renovation. This is compared to that $15,000 renovation, but the difference here is we're going to do all those cosmetics, but we're also going to add in some really significant upgrades. And what are they? We're going to put in a new roof. It's about $3,000. We're going to put in new windows, about $3,500. We're going to put in a new heating system, again, about $3,500. And we're going to go in here and we're going to replace the drain line. We're going to upgrade some of the electric in the house, get rid of all the knob and tube in the property, and just make sure that all in all this property functions very, very properly. We're going to be all into this place for $30,000. Now, with this investment, the difference is about $10,000 more, and out of pocket, we're going to have $2,500 more. Okay, so for $2,500, you get a new roof, new windows, a heating system, new drain line, and an upgraded electrical system. Pretty good deal, you know? But what we have here is we got a $70,000 investment instead of a $60,000 investment. What's that look like on a cash flow basis? Let's take a look. We've got the same annual income, $10,200. We've got the same expenses, right? We have the same taxes, insurance, the same licenses and fees and maintenance and management costs. So that's going to stay the same. But our adjusted income is going to be the same, $66,224, right? Now, the big difference here is going to be the principal and interest payment, because we're talking about $70,000 as opposed to $60,000. The difference here is, let's call it $400 a year. That's right, $400 a year difference. So on our bottom line, the difference here, as you can see, is $37.26 for property 1, as opposed to $32.42 for property number 2. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, well, I paid more for the property, I get less cash flow, and yeah, I got some of these upgrades, but then what's the real difference? I mean, the bottom line and the name of the game here is this is an investment. I want a better return. I agree with you on the surface. And, you know, in a perfect world and on paper, yeah, we'd have, every day, we'd be taking this, carpet and paint rehab and doing that on every property. However, in the real world, things don't always work like that. So here's what happens in the real world. In property number 1, you get a bunch of tenants, they see the property, or prospective tenants, they see the property, they love it, because you did a nice job. You put in a new kitchen and a new bathroom, painted really nicely, new carpets, boom, they sign the lease, they move right in. And then we get a really hard rain. Doggone it, that hard rain always kills you, right? And there's a leak in the back bedroom. So you call up your roofing contractor, he goes out there and he does a patch and it costs you $500, not much. But then you got to send somebody to fix the ceiling from the leak, so that's another $100. So you're out $600 from this $3,700 annual income. So now you're down to $3,100. And then fall rolls around and it starts getting a little chilly in the autumn. And the tenant goes on and they kick on the heat and nothing happens. And so they pick up the phone and they call you and he said, well, hey, let me send out my heating contractor. The contractor goes out there and he says, listen, I'm looking at this thing and I can replace a couple pieces here, but it's only going to last a little bit of time. You say, well, you know what? This is a cash flow business. I want to keep the money in my pocket, so let's just do the repair. He says, okay, I'll send you a bill for $800, right? So now we're down to 31 minus 800, right? What is that? We're down to $2,300. Now, this is real world $2,300 on the $60,000 investment, that 20% return on investment, all of a sudden is not looking so 20%. Now let's say you've got another repair, or and your windows you got a problem with one of the windows, it has to be replaced. Or they call license and inspections, and license and inspections comes out and they say, you know what, something's wrong with this electrical, it's dangerous, it needs to be upgraded, it needs to be replaced. Now all of a sudden you go from that $2,000 positive annual income to a loss, where you're pumping money into this property so that somebody else can live in your house. That's not the way this is supposed to go. It's not the way it's supposed to go. So now let's compare that to property number two. Property number two, put a tenant in the property, they move in, and you get that same hard rain. Well, you took steps up front, you paid $2,500 more out of pocket, you're taking $400 roughly less a year in cash flow, and so you got a new roof. No big deal. It rains, drains away, tenant doesn't even think about it. Tenant goes to use the bathroom, they flush the toilet, everything works just fine. No cracked sewer lines, no problems. They turn on the lights flash right on. And then when it gets cold in the wintertime, they go in and turn the heat on, and guess what? Fire's right up, you got a new heater. So that's a great situation. Now, with property number two, you have a tenant that's got no reason to complain, no reason to withhold rent, no reason to go and find somewhere else to live. As opposed to tenant number one, who every time there's a hard rain, every time it gets cold, every time they flush the toilet, every time they try to turn on a light, it becomes another problem. And guess what? Tenants don't like problems, just like we don't like problems. So the bottom line here is that as investors, we have a job to do. And our job is to make sure that we're calculating the costs, the real costs of an investment. That includes taking a look at the real cost of upgrading and maintaining the mechanicals of a property. We want to look at the roof, we want to look at the windows, the heating system, the plumbing systems, the electrical systems, and put our money where it belongs and calculate and budget for those upgrades from day one. Because if you do that, you might end up paying a little bit more for the asset, but in the long run, it stays an asset. You have shorter vacancy rates, very lower vacancy rates. You have tenants that stay a heck of a lot longer. You have less problems, and at the end of the day, you'll have better returns on your investment. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. Again, I got a free report coming. This is just a little snippet of what's involved. Feel free to sign up. Within the next week or two, it's going to be completely available. If you sign up now, I'll send it to you an email when it's ready to go. It's called The 9 Rules for Building a Rental Empire in Any Market. Anyway, thanks so much. Sign up for the free report, and I will talk to you soon.